Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Jayam Mudire. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. Loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established an irrevocable fact. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. This word irrevocable is very important. When you give something, a check for example, in the material world, is considered to be irrevocable when it is issued. And therefore, if you try to revoke a check after it has been given, then you have grounds to claim it as if it is actually cash. The principle of devotional service is the same. When loving service to Krishna is given, then what comes out from loving service is never taken away. Never taken away. It is never revoked by Krishna. So it's something that's very important. A fact in this material world is factual based on relative terms. But rendering of devotional service to Krishna is always going to be absolute. So we should never forget this very important point of remembering Krishna on the platform of devotional service. So we're very happy to be here today to take darshan of Radha Shyam Sundar, take darshan of the Lordships. Thank you Purnendu Prabhu, Mataji. Very happy to be back here. Golden Valley will always be special because our Guru Maharaj actually spent so much of his time, so much of his energy in giving so much of mercy of Bhagavatam from here. And just like any place becomes auspicious by the sound vibrations of Bhagavatam, so too in the same way, wherever we continue to hear Bhagavatam, study Bhagavatam, and lovingly take this devotional process up, that place also becomes very auspicious. So today we thought maybe we will look at a nice verse from the second canto, 9th chapter, 4th verse. It's an important chapter to look at. So if you don't have the books, or if you want to share, that's fine. Otherwise, maybe we can start by chanting the shloka. It's 294. 294.
It's on page 266 if you have a big black book.
Okay.
Do you remember these? The one devoted.
Yeah, well, I was just looking at them. I just remember them. They're huge. Easier to read. Yeah. I remember Krishna Ashray.
Yeah.
Yes. Atma Tattva Vishuddhyartam Yad Aha Bhagavan Ritam Brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
avyalika vritadritaha
Avyalika vritadritaha
atma tattva vishuddhyartam
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
yad aha bhagavan ritam
Yadata bhagavan ritam
brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
avyalika vritadritaha
Avyalika vritadritaha
atma tattva vishuddhartam
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
yad aha bhagavan ritam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
avyalika vritadritaha
Avyalika vritadritaha
Prabhus.
Atma tattva vishuddhyartam
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Yadaha bhagavan ritham
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Avyalika vritadritaha
Avyalika vritadritaha Atma tattva vishuddhartam Atma tattva vishuddhartam Yadaha bhagavan ritam Yadaha bhagavan ritam Brahmane darshayan rupam Brahmane darshayan rupam Avyalika vritadritaha Avyalika vritadritaha
Atma tattva vishuddhyartam
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Yadaha bhagavan rutam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Avyalika vrutadrutaha
Avyalika vritadritaha
Atma tattva vishuddhyartam
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Yadaha bhagavan vritam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Avyalika vritadritaha
Avyalika vritadritaha
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Avyalika vritadritaha
Avyalika vritadritaha
Mataji's?
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Avyalika vritadritaha
Avyalika vritadritaha
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Atma tattva vishuddhartam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Yadaha bhagavan ritam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Brahmane darshayan rupam
Avyalika vritadritaha
Avyalika vritadritaha
Atma tattva.
Atma tattva
The signs of God.
The signs of God
Or that of the living entity.
or that of the living entity
Vishuddhi.
Vishuddhi
Purification.
Purification
Artham.
Artham
Goal. Yat.
Yat
That which.
That which
Aha. Said. Bhagavan.
Bhagavan
The personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead
Ritam.
Ritam.
In reality.
in reality
Brahmane.
Brahmane.
Unto Lord Brahma.
unto Lord Brahma
Darshayan.
Darshayan.
By showing.
showing
Rupam.
Rupam
Eternal form.
eternal form
Avyalika.
Avyalika
Without
without
any deceptive motive.
any deceptive motive
Vrita.
Vrita.
Vow.
Vow.
Adritaha.
Adritaha.
Worshipped.
Worshipped.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Jai.
Please repeat the translation. O King,
O King,
the personality of Godhead,
personality of Godhead,
being very much pleased
being very much pleased
with Lord Brahma,
Lord Brahma,
because
because
of his non-deceptive non-deceptive
non-deceptive
penance
penance
in Bhakti Yoga
in Bhakti Yoga
presented
presented
his eternal
his eternal
and transcendental form
and transcendental form
before Brahma.
before Brahma,
And that
that
is the objective goal
the objective
for
goal
purifying
purifying
the conditioned soul.
conditioned soul.
Please hear this wonderful purport. Atma Tattva is the science of both God and the living entity. Both the Supreme Lord and the living entity are known as Atma. The Supreme Lord is called Paramatma, and the living entity is called the Atma, the Brahma or the Jiva. Both the Paramatma and the Jivatma, being transcendental to the material energy, are called Atma. So, Shukadev Goswami explains this verse with the aim of purifying the truth of both the Paramatma and the Jivatma. Generally, people have many wrong conceptions about both of them. The wrong conception of the Jivatma is to identify the material body with the pure soul, and the wrong conception of Paramatma is to think him on an equal level with the living entity. But both misconceptions can be removed by one stroke of Bhakti Yoga, just as in the sunlight, both the sun and the world and everything within the sunlight are properly seen. In the darkness, one cannot see the sun, nor himself, nor the world. But in the sunlight, one can see the sun, himself, and the world around him. Srila Shukadev Goswami therefore says that for purification of both wrong conceptions, the Lord presented his eternal form before Brahmaji, before being fully satisfied by Brahma's non-deceptive vow of discharging Bhakti Yoga. Except for Bhakti Yoga, any method for realization of Atma Tattva or the science of Atma will prove deceptive in the long run. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that only by Bhakti Yoga can one know him perfectly, and then one can enter into the science of God. Brahmaji undertook great penance in performing Bhakti Yoga, and thus he was able to see the transcendental form of the Lord. Brahmaji undertook great penance in performing Bhakti Yoga, and thus he was able to see the transcendental form of the Lord. His transcendental form is 100% spiritual, and one can see him only by spiritualized vision after proper discharge of tapasya or penance in pure Bhakti Yoga. The form of the Lord manifested before Brahma is not one of the forms with which we have experience in the material world. Brahmaji did not perform such severe types of penance just to see a form of material production. Therefore, the question by Maharaj Parikshit about the form of the Lord is answered. The form of the Lord is Satchit Ananda, or eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. But the material form of the living entity is neither eternal, nor full of knowledge, nor blissful. This is the distinction, that is the distinction between the form of the Lord and that of the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul, however, can regain his form of eternal knowledge and bliss simply by seeing the Lord by means of Bhakti Yoga. The summary is that due to ignorance, the conditioned soul is engaged in the temporary varieties of material forms. But the Supreme Lord has no such temporary form like the conditioned souls. He is always possessed of an eternal form of knowledge and bliss, and that is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. One can understand this difference by the process of Bhakti Yoga. Brahma was then told by the Lord the gist of Srimad Bhagavatam in 4 original verses. Thus, Srimad Bhagavatam is not a creation of the mental speculators. The sound of Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental, and the resonance of Srimad Bhagavatam is as good as that of the Vedas. Thus, the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of both the Lord and the living entity. Regular reading or hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is also performance of Bhakti Yoga, and one can attain the highest perfection simply by the association of Srimad Bhagavatam. Both Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit attained perfection through the medium of Srimad Bhagavatam. Jai Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. So before we try and say something on this very wonderful verse, we seek the blessings of our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and all the assembled Vaishnavas, so that we will not say anything wrong or offensive in the course of our discussion. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamayam Dadadi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padavadakam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sadhanagranamitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanam Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sadhanagranamitam Shri Vishakamitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Bhaktadanjana Gaurangi Radhe Ramaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Namo Mahamadhyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurapushe Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. This verse is a very important verse, but it is found in an equally important chapter. In the 9th canto of the 2nd chapter, the entire essence of Bhagavatam is given in 4 shlokas, which we will come to in the next few verses. These are known as the Chatur shlokas of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like we have Chatur shlokas in Bhagavad Gita, and they are also considered to be the essence of Bhagavad Gita. In the same way, the whole Bhagavatam has come from these 4 verses. So, in the 9th chapter now, you will also find that Brahmaji has been praying very hard to Krishna because he has a task to fulfill. The task that he has to fulfill is the creation of this material world, secondary creation. It's not an easy task. For us to create something materially is already very difficult. What to speak of the entire secondary creation? So the task that Brahmaji was going to do is very, very powerful, very onerous. But Brahmaji's mood in invoking the form of the Lord is very, very important. We find here that Shukadeva Goswami is saying to Parikshit Maharaj that Brahmaji pleased Krishna, and that is actually the objective of our existence, to somehow or another please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we can do it best by pleasing His devotees. That is something that is very important. Aham bhakta paradino hi asva tantra ivadvija sadhu vir grasta hridayo bhaktai bhakta jana priyaha. In the 9th canto, 4th chapter, I think it's the 58th, 59th, or maybe 60th verse, there are 4 very important verses there that explains the relationship between Krishna and his great devotees. And in this particular verse, Krishna says to Durvasa Muni that Aham Bhakta Paradino, Hi Asvatantra Ivadvijaha. He says, "O Brahmana, Durvasa Muni, please know that factually speaking, I am not at all independent." This is very interesting because at the very beginning of Bhagavatam, Krishna is described as being Swarat. That means he is fully independent. But by the 9th canto, Krishna appears to have changed his mind. And he appears to have had a relook at his identity. And now he tells Durvasa Muni, who must be very surprised to hear this, that frankly speaking, I am not at all independent. I am completely dependent on my devotees. This is the mood of the Lord. The Lord's relationship with his pure devotees is so great, so powerful, that even though he is able to exert his full independence, out of love, he actually becomes subservient to the wishes of his devotees. And the reason for that is because his devotees are non-deceptive, and because they themselves are fully dependent on Krishna. In this material world, all relationships are very, very self-motivated. No matter how much we try, always we take up a relationship based on what we can get. And very often when we want something from that person, we may not naturally in the beginning say it, but eventually we want more benefit than we can give. The material world is very much like that. And that's why people after a while get tired of relationships. But in the spiritual world, the Lord doesn't exploit his devotees, and the devotees do not exploit the Lord. And that is why the equilibrium between the Lord and the devotees is perfect. It is perfect. That's why Krishna says that frankly speaking, I am dependent on such kinds of devotees. That's why over here, it is very important for us to understand practically what pleases Krishna. Because that's the reason why we have become devotees. We do not become devotees ultimately to please ourselves. Because we realize that in trying to please yourself in this material world, without the blessings of the Lord, is an impossible task. For a while there may be some pleasure, but after a while it must go. Even if we come to Krishna because we have some other reason, we'll find that until and unless we really take up devotional service with the mood of wanting Krishna's interest ahead of ours, the devotee's interest ahead of ours, till that point, it will be very difficult for us to be peaceful in devotional service. So that's why this verse is very important, because it tells us the signs of who we are and who Krishna is. Very often we discuss so many high-flown topics of Krishna, but the reason why after all that discussion we are still disturbed, we are still anxious, we are still in trouble, is because the signs of Atma Tattva has skipped us. It's like someone, Prabhupada says, who wants to go to the top of the building without taking the flight of stairs. And mind you, he doesn't have a lift. So how are you going to go to the top? It's very difficult. So just by looking at the top of the building doesn't mean you will reach the top. It must be from the bottom to the top. And that is why the other word that's important in this verse is the word penance. Penance means that there must be endeavor. There must be some sweat and blood, as we say it in this world. Even in material things, how much we struggle to obtain a fraction and moment of happiness, each one of you know. And what to speak when we come to Krishna? We say, no, Krishna should make it very easy for us. Very often we think, why is it that we should work so hard in devotional service? Devotional service is meant to be easy because we are part and parcel of Krishna. If we are part and parcel of Krishna, all the more reason for us to want to lovingly sweat the blood and the sweat for Krishna. This point we should not forget. Penance equals to purification. And that is why in this verse, very simply put, Krishna became pleased with Brahma, and therefore he presented his eternal transcendent form. So today we take darshan of Radha Shyam Sundar, and they are here before us. And frankly speaking, their form is totally transcendental. If we want to remain peaceful under their shelter, then we must follow this great example of Brahmaji. First we must understand who is Krishna. Then we must understand who we are. And then putting two together, we must understand how we should please Krishna. And that is what this entire verse is about. Prabhupada makes it very clear to us that Krishna's form is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. That means Krishna is completely Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means he is one absolute truth. Anything that we do in relationship to Krishna will always be auspicious. But that which happens without relationship to Krishna, that appears to be auspicious, but it is relative. It is always relative. That's why in this world, you will hear people saying this thing is auspicious, that thing is not auspicious. But in front of Krishna, anything which is done for Krishna becomes auspicious. You know, yesterday we remembered Vamandev, isn't it? And his wonderful appearance. At one point, at the end of the whole pastime, Vamandev turns to Sukracharya, because Sukracharya started the whole ball rolling by cursing. And now he turns to him and asks him, so, now do you have any problems? Now, would you be able to find some fault in whatever has happened? And Sukracharya says very nicely, Mantratas Tantratas Chitram. Very important point. He says that whatever discrepancies there may be when we chant the mantras, whatever discrepancies there may be when we perform the rituals, Desha Kalartha Vashtutaha. Desha, whatever discrepancies there may be according to place, sometimes the place may not be auspicious. Sometimes people say time may not be auspicious. Sometimes people say paraphernalia may not be auspicious. Sometimes people say, have you looked at the vastu? Are the deities in the right place? Are we sitting in the right way? You know, is there any flow of water? All these things. People look at all these things before they get a house, before they do anything. So here, Sukracharya is saying all these things may have discrepancies. But the moment your lordship's names are chanted, this is very important. Sarva karoti nischidram. Chidram means discrepancies. Nischidram means no discrepancies. The moment your lordship's names are chanted, this is very important. Anu sankirtanam tava. That means the moment your lordship's names are chanted anywhere, at that moment the form of the Lord becomes present. And the moment the form of the Lord is present, then whatever discrepancies there may be, they all do not become discrepancies anymore. This is the greatness of Bhagavatam. This is the greatness of devotional service. That's why Prabhupada hammers this point here of the greatness of Bhakti Yoga. And this is a practical point for us. Because otherwise by nature we are very critical. When we walk into any program, instead of appreciating the beautiful form of the Lord, we start looking for faults. Oh, this is not right, that is not right, deities look this way, flower doesn't look right, altar doesn't look right, dressing is not up to standard. We can find faults with anything and everything. And the moment we do that, we don't realize that we are no longer seeing the form of the Lord. Because the form of the Lord disappears when one has this mood of criticism. That's why Sukracharya could not actually gain the full benefit of what his disciple Bali Maharaj could gain. Bali Maharaj saw the hand of Krishna when he lost everything. Sukracharya only was thinking what he was going to lose when Bali Maharaj was going to lose everything. This is the difference. That's why as a devotee, if we really want to see Krishna, the first thing we should do is to be non-deceptive. And I remember Maharaj very often saying, a critical person is a deceptive personality. Very strong point. Why? Because criticism has no place in devotional service. Rather, seeing the good in anything that happens, seeing the hand of Krishna in anything that happens, that is the true meaning of non-deception. So when we know Krishna is absolute truth, then whatever he gives us is absolute. Why should there be any problems to receive it? Chit, whatever that Krishna knows and whatever that is revealed to us is sufficient. We should always understand and not become frustrated when we are in difficulty, because very often we are frustrated by lack of knowledge. And whenever there is lack of knowledge, there is assumption of knowledge. If someone doesn't smile at me today, I assume it's because he's angry. I assume it's because he's very proud. If his face looks a little bit sad, I assume that he has had some tragedy. And if I see you at some program and I forgot to say Hare Krishna to you, you assume that I am angry with you. All these assumptions of knowledge, they are all defective. But we should understand that Krishna knows everything. That is why when Chitraketu Maharaj in 6th canto, when the form of Sankarshan, the Lord, appeared before him, Chitraketu Maharaj said something very beautiful. He said that, my Lord, everything is known to you. 6th canto, 16th chapter, I think it's 31st, 32nd verse. He says, my Lord, everything is known to you. Just like by the power of sunlight, everything becomes visible. Actually, in your presence, everything is known to you. So while we sit down in front of Krishna, we should have firm faith that Krishna knows each and everyone's heart. Then he says something very nice. In the presence of sun, what need is there for the light of a glowworm? You know, the glowworms, they look as if they're very bright, only in the darkness of night. But the moment the sun comes out, what is the value of a glowworm? So Chitraketu Maharaj says, in the presence of you, what is the use or what is the value of what I think I know? What I think I know is very small. So if we are really humble in the form in front of Krishna, then we should understand that while our senses and our knowledge is very defective, Krishna knows everything. If he knows everything, we must have faith that he knows what is in our hearts. He knows what is in everybody's heart. This we should understand. And the last point that's important to understand Krishna is that Krishna is always happy. And always Maharaj used to say, have you ever seen a form of Krishna where he does not smile? If Krishna does not smile, the pujaris, in Krishna temples will run out of business. Because nobody will come to worship Krishna. Nobody wants to come and see a devotee who doesn't smile. Sometimes Maharaj said devotees unnecessarily become grave. They look at people in such a way people want to run away from them. That's not the point. When Maharaj was going to take sannyas, or rather after he took sannyas, there was this sannyasi who came up to him and he told him, Maharaj, before you took sannyas, I noted that you're very friendly with everyone. You'd smile, you'd speak, you'd be very personal. But now let me tell you, once you become sannyasi, you must be very grave. So Maharaj said, what do you mean by grave? So this sannyasi told him, when someone says Hare Krishna to you, don't be in a hurry to say Hare Krishna to them. Rather, you should look at them very carefully, very deeply. You should have a long, pregnant pause, so that they understand that there is so much gravity coming from this personality. And after a while, when they start becoming a bit uncomfortable, then you should carefully say, Hare Krishna. And in that way, they will understand that you are a person of great stature. Then the other thing they advised Maharaj was, when you walk also, you should take very slow, measured steps, as if you are floating and not actually walking. And in that way, people will come to understand that you are very grave. And Maharaj was telling me, I was thinking at that point of time, maybe I made a mistake with sannyas. Because if sannyas is meant to change the nature which is natural in me, then am I not becoming deceptive in my behavior? Does it not then become that I am something which I am not? So this point is very important. We should be who we are. There is no need for artificial behavior because we are supposedly giving class or we are devotees. Devotee means natural. And Maharaj said devotees means he should be able to smile. At least there must be smile. And if you smile, some teeth must show, Maharaj said. Don't give funny smile without teeth. There is nothing wrong in devotional service. We left everything because there we could not smile, we were crying. Now we come before Krishna, again we start crying.
I want to cry more.
Cry more in fact, yes. So this is our difficulty. So we should understand that whenever we come in touch with Krishna, three things should happen in our hearts. One, we should have firm conviction that Krishna knows exactly what we need and not what we want. That is Chit. Second, we should understand that whatever Krishna gives us is absolute. It is sufficient. We don't have to go beyond that. We don't have to conjecture, we don't have to concoct, nothing, just accept. And thirdly, whatever comes, because we become satisfied, santushtaha, then actually we become really peaceful. This is also very important. One who understands these signs of the Lord, then he understands that Krishna and himself are very different. Which brings us to the second point, that Krishna cannot be understood by material signs. This is very important. With our material senses, if we try to understand Krishna, then we will be in great difficulty. This point Maharaj very often brought up to us. Very often devotees have this habit of arguing, concocting, bringing up various kinds of arguments, all based on the idea that we are trying to advance in Krishna consciousness. But Maharaj very often said that that's a waste of time. Why? Because by materially using your intelligence to ascertain Krishna, by materially using the mind to ascertain Krishna, one cannot understand who Krishna is. Krishna can only be understood by a devotee, by devotional service. Frankly, simply put, if we chant very nicely, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If daily we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, as Prabhupada writes here, regular hearing and regular reading of Bhagavatam, then whatever that is Krishna's interest will be revealed in the heart. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti. Priti means dear, purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Krishna makes it very clear. Understanding of him only comes when he chooses to give you that understanding. We can stand on our heads upside down for 60,000 years, but that understanding of Krishna is not going to come only and unless he decides to give it. There is that verse from Kathopanishad, Nayam Atma Paravachanena Labhyo, Na Medaya, Na Sutena, Na Bahu, Na Sutena. Very important verse from Katha Upanishad. There, Prabhupada liked this verse. There, Krishna makes it very clear that I am not to be known. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be known by intelligence. He cannot be known by great learning. He cannot even be known by someone who's hearing about him. He can only be known if he chooses to give mercy to that person. Very important. Very, very important. So this point, Prabhu, you have to go, please. Carry on. I'll see you later. If anyone has to go to work, please do not be delayed. If you have to go, you have to go. So this point is very important. That's why in 6.4.29 of Srimad Bhagavatam, of all persons, Daksha, the Prajapati, he gives a nice point that we should always remember. Yadya niruptam vachasa nirupitam diyakshavirva manasotayasya ma bhut swarupam gunarupam hitata savai gunapaya visharga lakshanaha. Very important verse. Because there, Krishna, Daksha is saying to Krishna that anything which is expressed by material vibrations, anything which is ascertained by the material intelligence, anything which is expressed by material senses, and anything which is concocted by the material mind, what is that? All of this is but an effect of the modes of material nature. Very important. Material nature has nothing to do with Krishna. It is only an external manifestation of Krishna's energy. So, Daksha is making this very important point, that if we try to approach Krishna by material intellect, material mind, if we try material arguments to understand why Krishna has done that, why Krishna is doing this, you will become very frustrated. Because as Daksha says, it has nothing to do with Krishna. Because Krishna is beyond the creation of this material world. How to understand something which is beyond matter? You can only understand it on the realm of spirit. And the realm of spirit means by chanting Krishna's names, by hearing about him, and by engaging in devotional service. Any other way will become very, very frustrating for the devotee. So this point we should always remember about Krishna. The second thing we should remember is that the science of the living entity is also Atma Tattva. Just like we know who is Krishna, it is very important for us to be humble enough to know who we are. Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita tells us very plainly that we are not Krishna. That we must always understand that we are servants of Krishna. We must also understand that we can never become Krishna. And the mood of a devotee is that he is always fallen. This is a nice mood to have. Fallen doesn't mean that we are full of loss of self-esteem. But fallen simply means that we understand that without the mercy of the Lord and the devotees, no matter how much progress we make in this world, we'll always be frustrated. This point is very important. We have 4 defects, all of us, isn't it? What are the 4 defects?
We commit mistakes.
Sorry?
We commit mistakes.
Yes, we always commit mistakes. And that's the first mistake we commit. We don't accept that we commit mistakes. Very often. Or, the other way is, we expect everyone to accept that we commit mistakes. But when others commit mistakes, not acceptable. Not acceptable. If someone says, Prabhu, genuinely it's a mistake. No. It's not acceptable. This is very bad. Everyone will make mistakes. And if we think we cannot make mistakes, then we become very proud. And making mistake is one thing, Maharaj said, but admitting your mistake is another. By making mistakes and understanding that we are full of mistake, then we cross the first hurdle of understanding who we are. What's the second defect?
Perfect sense.
Yes, we are always in illusion. We are always in illusion. And the reason we are in illusion is because we have defective senses. And that's the other defect, that our senses are not perfect. Our senses are not perfect. So with an imperfect sense, how can we understand the supreme perfect? We can't. And with imperfect senses, how can we understand then what Krishna's plan is in store for us? So materially, if we try to understand, we become frustrated. And that's the reason we are always disturbed. Because we don't accept, but instead we expect. Acceptance of our condition is the royal road to peace, because it shows we have faith in Krishna. Expectation coming from Bhakti Yoga is going to kill our devotional service. Because the moment you expect, it becomes material. The moment you accept, it becomes spiritual. It's just one letter, A and E, but it makes so much difference in our spiritual life. So this point also we should remember. The third defect is given, and what is the last defect?
Cheating.
Yes.
Cheating.
We are always full of cheating propensity. That cheating propensity never leaves us. If somehow or another we can do 15 rounds and pass it off as 16 rounds, we'll do it. If somehow or another we can read Bhagavatam one page less than what we promised Krishna, we'll do it. And we'll find all the favorable arguments why we should do it. If somehow or another we can miss Mangala Arati, we'll also do it. If somehow or another we can find a way to show the world what great devotees we are and cheat everyone in that process, we will also do it. So that cheating propensity is always there. With all these defects, how can we even logically think that we are on the same platform as Krishna? These defects are meant to give us humility. Trinadapi Sunichena. The whole point of Siksashtakam, the whole point of humility is so that we can continuously chant Krishna's names. So Prabhus, Matajis, if somehow or another we find it difficult to chant Krishna's names, difficult to execute devotional service, if we find obstacles coming, the only reason for that is on the basis of the defect of our own behavior. Somewhere along the line we are not humble. Somewhere along the line we are not tolerating. Somewhere along the line we are expecting respect. And somewhere along the line we are not devoid of false prestige. If these four pillars of good character are not present, then we cannot understand who Krishna is, and we cannot understand who we are. So this point is also very important. So how to understand who we are is very nicely given in the pages of Bhagavatam. In 3.7.11 and 3.7.12 of Bhagavatam, these are the only two verses in whole Bhagavatam that makes it very clear who we really are. And if ever we need to discuss the signs of who we are and that we are not permanent, then these two verses should be remembered. In 3.7.11, very nicely it is stated, Yatha Jale Chandramasaha. The example of the moon is given. Kampadis tat krito gunaha. The quality of the moon in the sky is that it doesn't move. Isn't it so? Moon remains as the moon. But supposing in the night, you are by the river and you see the reflection of the moon in the river. Now the nature of the river is kampadis. Kampadis means it is quivering, naturally, because water is never still. So when you see the ripples of the river and you see the reflection of the moon in the ripples, it appears as if the nature of the moon is also rippling. It's a very natural thing. Very often if you tell children, see the moon in the water, they will try to reach for the moon. If you say, how does the moon look? They will say, oh, it is moving. In the same way, the living entity thinks that his nature is quivering. His nature is that of the rippling effect of the water. But factually speaking, his nature is like that of the moon. It doesn't ripple. It is steady. And this is where we make the mistake. So this is a very easy way to understand. Bhagavatam is so nice. As the moon that is reflected in the water appears to the seer to be trembling due to being associated with the water. In the same way, the self, when it becomes associated with matter, appears to be qualified as matter. See this point? Something that we should always remember. Matter's nature is that it is temporary. And matter's nature is it must deteriorate. Bhautikanam cha bhavanam. It must deteriorate. If your position in society does not deteriorate, then something is surprising. If your health does not deteriorate, then it is more surprising. If your relationships do not go or deteriorate, then it is too much surprising. All these things must deteriorate. And a devotee who accepts that deterioration, he can see Krishna because he becomes peaceful. If a devotee fights that deterioration and expects there cannot be deterioration, then he is going to be frustrated in material life. So this is the nature of the living entity. So what is the solution to understanding the science of Atma Tattva? Krishna gives very nicely that argument in 3.7.12 after this verse. He says, Savai nivritti dharmena vasudevanukampaya bhagavad bhakti yogena tirodhathe shanai iha. In this verse, the whole process is given on how to understand who we are. Because there, very nicely it is stated by Shukadev Goswami, that misconception of self-identity, the conception that we are the body, is finally eradicated, diminished gradually. This is one thing we should understand. This process takes time. It is shanai. It is gradual. It won't happen overnight, Prabhus and Maharajis. If you chant and you think tomorrow everything will be very, very peaceful, then that expectation is not realistic. Because for millions of lives we forgot Krishna. Do you really think after millions of lives of dirt, the dirt can go off in one day? No. Not even the best cleaning team in the world can get rid of that kind of dirt. It takes time. So one thing we should cultivate is patience. Things take time in devotion service. But as long as we are spending the time doing that, we are peaceful. If we lose time in anything else, then we are not peaceful. So here it is very nicely stated that misconception of who we are can be diminished gradually. How? By the mercy of Krishna. Vasudeva anukampaya. Only by the mercy of Krishna. This is very important. If we foolishly think that we can do it, then we are mistaken. If Krishna wants, it can happen. If Krishna doesn't want, then no matter what you do, it will not happen. Have you had experience in your own lives where you tried to go in one direction of life, nothing worked out? And suddenly one direction that you didn't want to go, everything worked out. It happens. For a devotee it is very simple. When something you try doesn't work out, Krishna doesn't want. When something you, without separate effort or after endeavor, it reciprocates, then Krishna has sanctioned it. In that way a devotee is very peaceful. If he gets prasadam, well and good. If it doesn't get prasadam, well and good. Of course it may not be so well for everyone. It doesn't help programs. But this is an example. So we should be peaceful. If we chant nicely, why we should expect that today our job should be alright? Why? This is expectation. This expectation leads to unnecessary anxiety. It breaks the bridge between us and Krishna. Because then your relationship is motivated. I am chanting, you give me something. Otherwise, why should I chant? This is not love. Exactly, this is business. This is business transaction. Then might as well you forget about Krishna. You conduct business. Because that is what we want to do. So this point is important. Very often people feel that there must be a parallel path of progress in spirit and matter. But actually, factually speaking, one does not have anything to do with it. The relative progress of spirit has nothing to do with the deterioration of matter. It is completely separate. This we should remember. Great personalities like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Prabhupada, at the time when they came, when it came for them to leave their bodies, their bodies also deteriorated. But their consciousness never deteriorated. Because consciousness of Krishna is spirit. The body is material. But even after the body went, because the body was such a receptacle for spiritual purification, that body of Prabhupada and our acharyas which are in samadhis, they continue to give us the purification, that encouragement, that strength. So it proves that even though the body may have no value, but if it is used for Krishna, then it becomes useful. Then it becomes useful. So this is the point that we must understand, that in this material world, nothing will last. But we can know that we are not this body, not by artificial means, but by getting the mercy of Vasudeva. How? As the verse tells us, Bhagavat Bhakti Yogena, by the process of devotional service. Without devotional service, we cannot understand who is Krishna and who we are. And this devotional service must be performed on the strength of one quality, in the mode of detachment. Savai Nivritti. Nivritti means to be detached. And that detachment can only come when we perform the penance that Brahmaji performed in this verse, in this chapter. Very, very important. So now we understand the signs of who Krishna is, and we understand the signs of who we are. We also understand that if we want to understand who we are in relation to Krishna, that platform is devotional service. We should also understand that in this world, when we expect, we are dragged. When we accept, we become liberated. And we must also understand that the way to attract the mercy of Krishna is also there. Bhagavad Gita tells us very nicely in, is it 266? Or is it 264? Raga Dvesha Vimuktaischu. 64, huh, Prabhu? So in 264, Raga Dvesha Vimuktaischu. Vishayan Indriyais Charan. Then Atma Vashai Vidayatma Prasadam Adhigachati. Very important verse. Because in that verse, Krishna says, a person who is free from all attachment and aversion. This is important. If we really want to attract the mercy of Krishna, neither do we hate something, nor do we like it. Sometimes we are at either ends. If we love someone, it's just too much love. Then that same person when we hate, oh my God, we hate them to no end. It happens in this world. That's why it's full of dualities. We are all extremists. We talk of extremists in the political sense. But in the spiritual sense, if we are not with Krishna, we are also very extremists. So either we love something or we hate something. But very often we love and hate something on the basis of our own selfish interests. I love you very much for what you have done for me. But I hate you because you have stopped doing that for me. That is how we regulate our devotional life. And that is very bad. That is not regulated. That is in fact irregular. Because it will affect our health. If you like someone, you only think of that person favorably. The moment you hate that person, you can't leave that person either. And it becomes very unfavorable. But a person who's free from that, he is able to control the senses. That's why we neither like something or we neither hate something. Both are not important to us. If that something or person can somehow or another connect us or make us remember Krishna, that is sufficient. We just serve that personality or we serve that cause. We are free of liking or hating. That's the first limb to attract the mercy of Krishna. The second limb to attract the mercy of Krishna is when we follow the regulative principles. These regulative principles that are given by our spiritual masters, by Krishna, they are very important. We cannot for a moment even dream that we are not subject to regulative principles of bhakti. We are all Shuddha Bhaktas. We can chant whenever we want. We can sing whenever we want. We take prasadam whenever we want. We can do whatever we want. That kind of principles are not principles of freedom. They will bind us. So a devotee who is very serious to chant his rounds, to follow strictly the principles of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, to follow strictly the orders of the spiritual master, which will actually accumulate all this into one set. The moment you please the pure devotee of the Lord, the moment you think, what would my spiritual master want me to do in this situation, in that circumstance, in this particular challenge? What would please him? The moment we think that way, Krishna will give us the full understanding to perform the right action. And the spiritual master will give us the strength to perform the right action. And the moment someone thinks that way, he becomes free of this material world. And that's why it's known as regulative principles of freedom. Such a person will actually attract the mercy of Krishna. Such a person to that person, Krishna becomes servant. Even if you don't ask for anything, Krishna gives everything. Sudama is a great example. When Sudama came to see Krishna, he did not ask anything from Krishna. But the purpose for coming initially was actually to ask him for give me some Lakshmi, because my poor wife and children don't have enough food. And his wife was particular to ask him, please go and see Krishna and please ask him for something. At least now use that relationship that you have with him and somehow or another get something. Sudama in his heart was not willing to do that. But he thought, why not just take this opportunity to go and see Krishna? We don't have to ask Krishna. Of course, he didn't tell that to his wife. Otherwise, she may not be very happy. So he takes off on a long journey. And all the way, he's only remembering Krishna. When he appears before Krishna in the opulent palace of Dwarka, Krishna receives him with so much love. Krishna gives him so much of respect as an old friend would. And that night, Bhagavatam tells us, when he lay down on a bed which felt like feathers, Sudama really thought that he had died and gone to heaven. Because he thought, this must be heaven, I've never experienced such opulence. And he only remembered the entire evening and morning's conversations that he had with Krishna. And remember that at that point when Sudama came, he had nothing to offer Krishna except these old, what rice was that? Chipped rice. And that rice didn't even come out from his own home. They had to go and beg the neighbor for the chipped rice and then give it to Krishna. Frankly speaking, was on loan, wasn't even his. But whatever he could get, he brought it. And frankly speaking, after so many days of travel, the chipped rice would not have been in good condition. But Krishna immediately sorted it out and he took it. And Bhagavatam tells us when he took one morsel, he became so satisfied that the entire universe became satisfied. He was going to take the second morsel when Lakshmi Devi, Rukmini Mata, stopped him and said, I think this is enough. You've given your devotee enough. Because if he were to take the second, then Lakshmi Devi, Rukmini Mata and all the goddesses of fortune would have to travel with Sudama. That would be how much benediction he would have been giving. So Krishna became very satisfied by something which was very simple. Because it was given in a non-deceptive manner. And that is why Brahmaji could see Krishna. Because his devotional service did not have a blink, not even an iota of deception. It was very straightforward. He just wanted to please the Lord, and our mood should be, we want to please the devotees of the devotees of the devotees of the Lord. Because we don't know Krishna. We frankly cannot understand what will please Krishna. But we know what pleases Guru. We know what pleases Prabhupada. And we should work towards pleasing them in a non-deceptive manner. And frankly, I asked Maharaj one time, Maharaj, how will I know exactly what pleases you? And he smiled at me and said, if you really look into your heart, that voice that will tell you this is not right, if you hear that voice, that is the voice of Paramatma. But the more you neglect that voice, the more silent Paramatma becomes. And there will come a point when the voice becomes so silent. It is not because Paramatma has left you, but because you only want to hear the sound of your own voice. So please be very careful to understand that you must know and you know what really pleases a spiritual master. But because our interest is ahead of his interest, we become deceptive in behavior. And all the penance in the world, all the sadhana in the world cannot attract the mercy of Krishna. Because it has not attracted the mercy of the pure devotee. So this is very important. Non-deceptive behavior. Then when finally Krishna asked Sudama, how is your family and everyone? He had ample opportunity. Krishna, actually that's the reason why I came. I want to tell you that we don't have a house, we don't have food, we don't have this, we don't have that. But Sudama never spoke about anything. He just said, Krishna, by your mercy everything is fine. Everything is fine. And actually it was true. Everything was fine. Even though they didn't have enough food, they had enough to keep them going. As far as Krishna was concerned, that was enough. And as far as Sudama was concerned, that was more than enough. So Sudama goes to sleep. Next morning he wakes up. Krishna says, Hare Krishna. He says Hare Krishna and Hari Bol. He leaves. Now he's walking back. Long journey back. And now he thinks, actually, why have you asked me for something? To ask Krishna. But I didn't ask. But he thought, actually Krishna is so kind. He actually, knew that he must have known my heart. And he did not want to ask me what I wanted, because he knew that if I were to ask, I will actually forget him, and that material thing that I want will become more important than Krishna. So actually Krishna is very kind. See the mood of a devotee. That he didn't walk away saying, Krishna is supposed to be Paramatma. He knows exactly why I came here for. Just completely ignored me the whole time, acted blur, so to speak, and thought that everything is fine and sends me home with nothing. Is this Krishna? No. A devotee always sees good in what Krishna doesn't, or whatever he gives. And this is how we should live in our lives. When we relate to others, we should just take the essence of what is good and ignore that which is not good. Vamandev is glorified as Bhavagrahi Janardana. Bhavagrahi Janardana. It is in that pastime that that Bali Maharaj remembers him as Bhavagrahi Janardana. And in that purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna is known as Bhavagrahi Janardana because he is one who takes the essence of a devotee's devotional attitude. He doesn't see the discrepancies. He doesn't see the externalities. He only sees the heart. And he saw the heart of Sudama. And when Sudama reached Porbandar, where he came from, he actually thought that he had made the wrong turn. He thought maybe he went to the wrong city. Because where there should have been his ramshackle hut, he saw a palace. And then he saw the goddess of fortune walking to him. And then suddenly he realized, oh no, that's not the goddess of fortune, that's my wife. I never bought her that sari, I don't remember buying her so much gold. Where did she get this from? When he saw his children looking like princes, he thought, this is, again maybe I died and went to heaven. And when he saw all the opulence, and when his wife came up to him and said, I am so happy that you spoke to Krishna very frankly. I'm so happy that whatever you told Krishna really worked, because before you came he has given everything. And Sudama remembered in his heart, I asked nothing from Krishna, but he gave everything because I never asked anything. This is the secret of devotional service. By not asking, we are actually winning. By asking, we actually lose. So our mood should not be to ask. Our mood should be to serve. And in service, we should have full faith that whatever comes out of service, if we are non-deceptive in our behavior, that is sufficient. Nothing else is needed. Nothing else is needed. And supposing we are deceptive, then the product is also there. The product is frustration, anxiety, and constant worry. Tato anyata kinchana yad vivekshataha pritag drishashtad kritarupanamapihi na karhichid koapicha dushtita matihi labeta na labeta vata hatanau ivaspadam. It's 1511, right? 1511. 11. Yeah. 1511 of Srimad Bhagavatam very nicely defines what is the mood of a devotee. Vyas Bhagwan is told by Narada Muni, whatever that you desire to describe, which is separate from the vision of the Lord, will only react with different names, forms, and it will react with all these different names and forms and what, Prabhu? You said something else. It interacts with different names and forms and results to produce agitation of the mind. Just like a boat which is not anchored to land will always be tossed by the waves of the ocean and cannot become still. In the same way, whenever we become disturbed in our lives, whenever we are anxious in our lives, take that as the first sign that something is wrong, something is defective in the discharge of our devotional service, in the discharge, in the mood of our approaching Krishna. If we may perform the greatest penance of Mangalarti, sadhana and everything, but if the deception is there in the heart, if there is motive in the heart, there will be that proportionate anxiety and proportionate disturbance. And a devotee like Brahmaji, he became unsophisticated in devotional service. You know, Prabhupada writes that point. Prabhupada says that sophisticated devotional service doesn't attract Krishna. Sophisticated means we make something it looks very sophisticated, it looks very deep. We make that which is simple very difficult. We make that which is very difficult pretend to look simple. This is all sophistication. Sophistication in material life may look very nice, but in spiritual life it is condemned. Unsophisticated, simple devotional service is what is needed. Did Sudama ask anything from Krishna? Did he have full faith that what would be needed for him would be given by Krishna? Yes. And what did he do? He only concentrated in the discharge of his devotional service, bhakti, nothing else. And because he concentrated only on bhakti, what was the result? He did not lose materially, even though he didn't need it. He didn't lose it. And at the same time, he gained spiritually so much because he got to see the eternal, transcendental form of the Lord face to face. And he became even more purified. More purified. And what was Krishna's mood in all this? Krishna's mood in all this was, his mercy was so attracted to Sudama because there was nothing deceptive about Sudama. There was nothing motivated about Sudama. And Sudama was thoroughly honest. Thoroughly honest. That honesty is not that, oh, Krishna, actually I came, for something else. No. Sudama was honest because in his heart, that something else was not as important as seeing Krishna. So he discarded it. A devotee who performs genuine penance receives the discriminating knowledge to put aside that which has no relationship to Krishna and take that which is only in relationship to Krishna. And that comes because of non-deception. So Bhagavatam is all about behavior. Finally, Bhagavatam is not about knowledge. Knowledge even great professional reciters have. Have you all heard professional recitations of Bhagavatam? Oh, these professional reciters, they know Bhagavatam inside out. I remember going for one in Ahmedabad and two in Rajkot because we were going to do Kirtan after that. And Maharaj told us, sit and hear all his shlokas. And the speaker was speaking and shlokas were flowing. And there was some lighting effect behind, some sound effect, because every time he ended a shloka, there would be some strong music going on. There would be some background music. After a while, one got the feeling that it became a performance. Because after all that, it was very needed that the speaker be paid. And the charges for professional recitation of Bhagavatam can practically empty your pocket. In this way, Bhagavatam cannot be regular and it cannot be sincerely studied. That's why Prabhupada ends the purport by saying very nicely this point, that Bhagavatam is not a creation of the mental speculators. This is very important. Those who use Bhagavatam just to create some concoction or use it to advance their arguments, which are totally material, they will never understand Bhakti. But Prabhupada writes here that this Srimad Bhagavatam is not a creation of mental speculators. The sound of Srimad Bhagavatam is transcendental. And the resonance of Srimad Bhagavatam is as good as the Vedas. So, regular reading or hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam is also performance of Bhakti Yoga. This is what we have to do. Regularly we should read and regularly we should hear. We should drop every other engagement and always start our day just the way we did today. This should not happen because it is just that we are all together once in a while. Whether you are alone or whether you are with 2-3 persons, we should just continue this devotional service unabated. When we do it that way, then there is no motive. If the motive is there because there is crowd, then only I can speak Bhagavatam nicely. No crowd, my incentive drops 2 notches. Depending on the crowd, to that much I become ecstatic. That is not devotional service. That is service to the mind and service of the senses. That will not actually keep us peaceful. So if one person heard Bhagavatam or 10 people heard Bhagavatam, the same way in which we study Bhagavatam should continue to be there. This is very important. So the conclusion to this verse is threefold. First, we should always remember that if we want to see the form of the Lord, we first have to please Him. How do you please Krishna? You please Krishna on the basis of non-deceptive behavior and penance, both of which Brahmaji did. Brahmaji performed penance to purify his existence. When you perform tapas, when you are prepared to undergo some difficulty and challenge to please Krishna, that actually purifies our consciousness. We don't realize, but it actually purifies. One time, one man came to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj, and he had so many questions. He had so much philosophy in his head, and he said, I want to discuss Bhagavatam deeply. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj said, fine, we can discuss Bhagavatam, but before you do that, go to the kitchen, my disciples are there, please wash all the pots, do all the service and come up. He came up once after that and said, now I'm ready to discuss. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj said, no, you're not ready yet. You go and do some more service. And by the end of the day, he had performed service for the whole day. And at the end of the day, when he came back to see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj asked him, so what are your questions? And what was going to be the subject of your discussion? And that man said, whatever questions I had in my heart, whatever discussions I wanted to discuss, everything became solved and became known to me after washing pots and pans for the whole day in the association of your great and sincere disciples. And that is why we perform penance. Because by performing penance, it purifies the heart to receive the real practical knowledge of Bhagavatam. So this is first point. Second point, that besides penance, there must always be good behavior. We must be thoroughly honest in our dealings with Krishna, and that means thoroughly honest in our dealings with devotees. If we are straightforward with devotees, then Krishna becomes pleased. If we try to perform something just so that we can gain some name, fame, designation, at the cost of being sincere and honest to Krishna, then Krishna will give us all the name and fame and designation, but he will just take away that bhakti from our hearts. And that will be the ultimate way in which he deceives us, not we deceive him. That's why Maharaj says, for those who are deceptive in behavior, please know that Krishna is a bigger deceptive cheater than we can ever be. If Krishna wants to cheat us, nobody can escape that. If Krishna wants us to forget something, we can also forget it. You remember Duryodhana? Duryodhana was going to become fortified by Gandhari. That night, one night, Gandhari told him at the end of the battle on that day, she said, I'm becoming very worried that all the ranks of the Mahabharata, the Kauravas, the ranks of the Kauravas are decimating day by day. I need to fortify you, make you strong. So do one thing. You come before me in the evening after the battle is over. When everyone has gone to sleep, come out of your camp. But only one thing is this, when you appear before me, you must have no clothes on. Because then I will lift the veil that is covering my eyes, and all the years of tejas that I've accumulated, I will fortify your entire body so that no one can touch you and you will be invincible in battle. But make sure you come alone and without clothes. Quite an unusual request. Grown-up man with no clothes, and that too in front of mother. But Duryodhana was ready. And so at the end of the battle on that day, when everyone had gone to sleep, Duryodhana creeps out of the tent and he's walking quietly, remember no clothes on, and as he makes a turn from his camp just very close to Gandhari, who does he see?
Krishna.
Of all persons, he sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is seated in his heart and who knows the objective of every living entity. And Krishna looks at him and he looks at Krishna, and Krishna starts smiling and says, Duryodhana, I know you've had a long day, but is this the result of your stress? Are you alright that you should be walking around the camp with nothing on in the middle of the night? Now Duryodhana starts looking at himself and says, yeah, it's a very embarrassing situation. So he starts saying very shyly, actually Krishna, my mother was the one who asked me to look like that. Now that looks even more bad. And Krishna says, man, don't you have any common sense? Mother may have told you to come before you like this. She is mother. But at least put on something to look decent before you see your mother. And Duryodhana thought, yeah, actually it makes sense. So quickly he takes gamcha, ties the gamcha and he walks. And as he walks there, what happens to him? He's walking there and all the time Mahabharata tells us, he's thinking in his mind, I will not forget that when I reach there I must take off. Then I must stand before mother. How many times have we done that? I don't mean walking around here. But I mean as in saying, I must remember something, and then at the opportune time when you should remember, remembrance leaves you. And in the same way when he was going to the tent, Gandhari Mata is waiting, Are you ready, Duryodhana? He says ready. She opens her eye and she starts from the top all the way down, and suddenly, what is this? He's covered his thighs, he's covered his regions, and this is the exact point where I have told him that he should not be covering. So Gandhari stops and she says, what happened, son? It was a simple instruction. It's not very difficult. You just take off everything and stand before me. Not very sophisticated. And then Duryodhana suddenly realized, yes, actually you're right. I remembered right to the point when I saw Krishna. And when I saw Krishna, and Krishna suggested you put on the clothing, at that point of time I forgot to take it off. And Gandhari at that point suddenly realized the futility of what she was trying to do. Then she realized that if you try to be deceptive with Krishna, if you try to find some way to win a battle, when Krishna's plan is something else, that plan cannot work. And no matter how much remembrance and memory and greatness of knowledge you may have, if Krishna decides that he doesn't want, then he will cause it not to happen. So if we want the mercy of Krishna, our behavior has got to be straightforward. So this is Bhagavatam. And with this, we should end here now. And we should always remember why Brahmaji was given so much benediction. Because Krishna became pleased by his penance. Brahma did not become puffed up when he was given the great qualification of becoming creator. In fact, in 4 prayers at the end of the third canto, 9th chapter, he prays very nicely that, O Lord, you are the maintainer and sustainer of everything. And I pray that when I take on this task, I should never forget that actually you are the person without whose blessings I cannot perform this task. Second prayer, I pray that in the execution of these duties, I will not be riddled with a sense of false prestige, of thinking that I am the creator. Third prayer, I pray that while I'm discharging these duties, that in all the discharge of my duties, like all of us are doing, let me not be deviated from always chanting the Vedic hymns. That means let me never be deviated from studying and taking shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the last prayer, let me always have darshan of your most pleasing smile, which is exactly what the chapter is about. Let us always pray to take darshan of this most pleasing form of Krishna. If these 4 prayers are there, then automatically Maharaj told us, there will be no deception in our heart. Automatically, in one stroke, as the purport tells us. This is the mood of Bhagavatam. This is the mood of Bhakti. Jai Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Srila Gurudev ki Jai. Jai Gaurakrishna. Are there any questions? Any nice realizations?
I have 3 questions. I don't know how far I can go.
Let's try them.
2 are related. One is kind of a cousin.
Yes.
One is, just practically speaking, I've realized that even when we hear such a nice message, especially about something like not being deceptive, afterwards when we're acting, we actually can't see how deceptive we may be being. You know, like we're totally unaware of our own deceptive nature in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So how do how is it that we can serve in a non-deceptive way when even without our own awareness we're being deceptive in different ways?
Yes. 2 ways in which we can do that. That is the reason why we take constant association of our spiritual masters. The more we hear from Srila Prabhupada, the more we hear from our spiritual masters daily, the more we will be free of deception. And the more we try to follow the instructions of the Acharyas, the more we fix in our heart that we should act in such a way to please them, the more non-deception will remain and prevail in our hearts. The other way, Prabhu, is the more quality there is in our devotional service, that quality will purify our existence. So these 2 will help us to curb that deceptive behavior, which is very natural when we come in contact with material nature. It is a constant struggle. But if Krishna sees we are trying sincerely to struggle, then why will he not give us the facilities to cross over this boat. To cross over this ocean of material existence. He will. He will. But these two things are very essential for Krishna consciousness. The next question, please.
Yeah, it kind of relates that. It has to do with, you mentioned a nice point about fault finding, not
Yes.
being critical.
Yes.
So I've noticed a lot of times in my little devotional career here that many times a lot of the biggest realizations I've had is when people are critical of myself, like when they point out a fault, when they show me this is how you're being deceptive. So it's kind of like, it seems, like fault finding, if they didn't fault find at that point, I would have missed my own deceptive nature. So I'm just wondering your take on that.
What is needed for us to understand is fault finding shouldn't become a business. That's very important.
Yeah.
Sometimes it becomes so much a part of our psyche that we justify it. I'm doing this for your own good. But frankly speaking, Shastras tell us, except for the pure devotee and the advanced devotees, we may not be in the position to actually be able to transmit what we see as a defect in someone without motive. And actually, while that person benefits, because he may be humble enough to accept our criticism, if our mood has not been right, while that person is benefiting, we are actually losing. Because we go into this false idea that, see, he has accepted my criticism, therefore my business is to criticize. And that becomes deceptive, because we deceive ourselves. So a devotee who's receiving criticism should not see it as criticism. That is maturity. He should see it as Krishna's way of telling him his defects. But he himself should not see the faults of others and make that into a preoccupation. Only when he thinks it is necessary to share it with a person, he may reveal his heart. But he can only do so if he has a relationship with the person. If I came up to someone I don't know and I criticize the person, where is the love to actually change him? There's no love. But if I have a relationship with the person, I can honestly say, Prabhu, this is not helping. Then he can understand that, yes, it is not criticism, but it is out of concern. That's why when our spiritual masters chastised us, or they criticized, so to speak, you found that we never left disturbed. Actually, we left feeling very encouraged. Yes, Guru has smashed us maybe, but it is good. From the ashes we will rise again. But if we walk around and have this Guru mentality, I'm chastising you for your benefit, then finally we will be reduced. And the other person who accepts it, they will increase. So there is a sense of balance. It's best to leave criticism to the great devotees who can understand that they don't criticize with a deceptive heart, but with the real understanding and welfare of humanity, which is not criticism. It becomes actually imparting of knowledge. Better we don't criticize. But then we'll always be subject of criticism. So when someone criticizes us, don't criticize them back. Accept it and say, there must be a reason why Krishna has said this, and why Maharaj wants me to understand this. Better I learn from it. That is safer. We also become more peaceful. Otherwise, we will keep thinking, he said this about me, said this about me. Next time when we see the person, very hard to say Hare Krishna. Very hard. Obviously Hare Krishna and look down. Or we look there, we look here. We can't look at him in the eye, because we're very angry. That doesn't help. Third question, the cousin.
Yeah, the cousin is, it kind of relates to basically, so sometimes there's challenges in devotional service where it's like a challenge where you should just push through. And there's other times where, like you're saying, when Krishna turns the time, or Providence turns its face, and you know that the time is not, where you shouldn't, you should just learn how to accept. So it seems like because sometimes it seems like we accept when we should be pushing, Krishna's not letting me come to Mangalarti, so let me obviously he's not making it happen, my car broke down or whatever, or vice versa is like, Krishna's really sending us a message, but we're just keep on trying to, you see Dhritarashtra and Mahabharata just keeps on trying to push his point or whatever. So, from your experience, how do you figure out which message is being sent?
I would normally ask advanced devotees, or we would put the question before Maharaj.
That's what I'm doing actually.
I think that is a safe option. When we ask a devotee, or when we are not sure, there are two ways in which for us to understand. One, Krishna will reveal, but he will reveal it on the basis of good sadhana. So if we read Bhagavatam and study Bhagavatam, Maharaj told us Bhagavatam will reveal everything to us in due course. If we are agitated, Maharaj told us simply bury our heads in Bhagavatam and all the answers are there. And if we cannot for some reason get the answers from Bhagavatam, then spend time in the association of devotees who make you remember Bhagavatam, make you remember the teachings of your spiritual master, make you remember Prabhupada. And in that way, you will also come to know the answer. But the real obstacle Maharaj always cautioned us is, after accepting that someone is advanced, we don't hear the message. Then it becomes lip service. Sometimes we say, "Oh, Prabhu, you're very advanced, say something." Then when I say something which is not in alignment with what you want to hear, then you don't hear. And at that point of time, we become frustrated. Because after seeking, if you don't take it, then it is very, very frustrating. Not for the person who has given it, but for the person who has sought it in the first place. So, one who is humble and ready to receive the knowledge of Krishna, then Krishna reveals very quickly, Prabhuji, what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. He will reveal it. He will reveal it. And sometimes if we don't want to accept it, then the slaps of Maya Devi are there. We get slapped and slapped and slapped until we can't be slapped anymore. And at that point we may turn around and accept what Krishna has given. That's what I can understand. Yes.
I got experience in these things actually.
Yeah.
Really, how it happened. One example I tell you.
Please tell us.
One day night, whole day night I was working in office.
Okay.
Next morning, I was driving car.
Okay.
On the highway, I just blinked my eyes. I don't know why it happened. See, in that circumstance, no one can help.
Yes.
When you blink, that's all finished my body. Something should happen.
Yes.
Krishna, how he made it is, one police, at that point, that too at highway where it's a big highway,
Yes.
where it is no one will be there in that time,
Yes.
and it's coming back at 5 o'clock,
Yes.
just to blink for 2 minutes from eyes. That itself finished the life actually. Highways,
Yeah.
1 second is enough actually.
Enough.
Back, 2 police came and they stopped the car immediately. So this is Krishna did actually.
Really Krishna did.
I didn't realize. My heart was shocked actually. After that I went home and realized why it happened for me.
Yes.
Because Krishna don't want you to suffer,
Yeah.
and he made me, 2 police come, and I was even in the parking lot after they came, I was not in a correct manner to park the car also. I just make near to the wall.
Yes.
Near to the wall. Then they told, you go further, and again, these 2 police told me, you go little bit further and park the car. Then I park, get out from the car, they told. Yeah, I get out. And sit down for half an hour.
Oh,
After that, you can drive the car. They told me.
Yes.
Then they understood what, have you drunk? He asked me. No, I didn't drink, sir.
Were you tired?
I'm tired. Like from where you are coming.
Yes, yes.
That day I was in one spiritual class. I'm coming from spiritual class that day. Really, after I went home, then I understood.
See?
Krishna,
Really,
there
it's true.
was nothing to happen to me.
Really?
How
It was not your
how
time.
he came in that form,
Yes.
I don't really understand.
Otherwise, when we see police, we are not very happy. Not at all. Yeah. But Prabhu is right. At that time, who best to help us in that situation, except 2 cars that came? It's true.
It's Krishna willingly he.
Yeah. This is the mood in which we should accept. Sometimes what looks very bad turns out actually to be all right. It is our consciousness. And because you accepted and saw the hand of Krishna, that is why Krishna gives you facilities to relate.
Then I asked Krishna, I'm not able to see you, but you are doing all these things.
Very true. But you have seen him in his actions. And
Yeah,
because
so many
he's
times I've
absolute,
seen like that.
So this is very nice. This should be the way we see Krishna in everything. This way we become peaceful. We also become more inspired. Thank you, Prabhu.
I only got surprised, really. If I think about that,
Yes.
one way I'm scared also.
Yes.
Because if something goes wrong that day,
Yeah.
finish.
Yeah.
If you get a death, that is okay. If something goes wrong,
Yes.
I have to throughout my life I have to suffer for it. I got Suffer, Krishna, how you did all these things? I prayed. I don't tell these things. I get a little bit shocked when I get heart.
Yes.
But Krishna, how you make all these things like this?
That's why he's really in the heart. He's really in the heart. Purnendu?
I was just coming to the last question about Atma's thing. I was just kind of wondering, see what you mentioned about accepting an authority and then not following through with authority. It's a very interesting point you made. And I was thinking it's quite often, I think I was trying to relate to a point you made yesterday about maybe someone is not actually trying to be deceptive. When people come to devotional service, when all of us come to devotional service, we come with some kind of sincerity, we come with a whole, not some, lot of sincerity. And we can't see, like you said, our own deception. Usually we can't see what way we are deceptive or anything like that. And that would largely be, it seems to me, due to our being conditioned by the modes of nature.
Yes.
Because even you can tell me as much as you want, you shouldn't be prideless. But if I'm in the mode of
Should
ignorance,
be prideless.
or I should be prideless. I should be prideless. Or
He's being
whatever.
very straightforward.
Yeah.
Please instruct me not
We
to
should
be
not be
prideless.
prideless, yes.
So you can say that, but then at the end of the day, after I leave Bhagavatam class, my modes of nature will take over again. And if I'm in the mode of fashion, ignorance, or whatever, the natural tendency, I will still think, no, I'm not being pride. I'm actually, being humble. I'm actually being this way, or whatever. So do you want to clarify that point again about how these modes of nature, in spite of the fact we might actually want a certain position,